Cheat Code Spanish.
So one of the most important aspects of any culture is their concept of time. Now in Spanish, one of the most commonly used words is ahora, which literally translates to now or on the hour. And that's how you would say the hour, la hora. Now that's easy to understand. What's confusing is the word ahorita. I would love to say that after a decade of living in Latin America, I could 100% explain to you what ahorita means. But let me give you a few examples. Ahorita can mean something just happened 5 minutes ago. It can mean something just happened or something's going to happen in the near future. If you ask someone, did you have breakfast? Ya desayunaste. They could say, sí, ahorita, which means yes, just a little bit ago. Or they could say, aún no, ahorita, which means not yet, in a few minutes. But that also can mean in an hour or so. So another tough concept of time in Spanish is arrival times. People will say vague things like voy llegando, and that could mean that they're en route, but also could mean that they haven't left the house yet. So you have to ask more follow-up questions like, ¿Cuánto demoras en llegar? They still might give you inaccurate information, but at least you have a little bit more information than I am arriving, which could mean literally anything. So a very important concept is the morning time, which is any time after 12 a.m. and it goes all the way to 12 noon. The morning, la mañana, can be very confusing because it's the same term that they use for tomorrow. So one thing you'll hear, or phrase you'll commonly hear is tomorrow in the morning. Mañana por la mañana. La tarde, which is feminine, is used from any time between noon until 6:59 p.m., depending on the country. And you can think of it as the same word as we use for arriving late. Tarde, la tarde. And this is the reason why they say buenas tardes. And if you're going to ask a security guard or a police officer or someone for directions, you always want to greet them with buenos dias, buenas tardes, before you ask the question. Also, the word tarde is used to explain that something is happening late. Let's say you want to make plans with someone after 10 p.m. They might say, now it's too late. Ya es tarde. Remember we talked about meals being like verbs? Well, the same can be true for the time of day. One important word is amanecer, which literally means sunrise or dawn. Spanish speakers may never exactly ask you, how are you doing this morning, which would be like, ¿Cómo está esta mañana? But they might ask you, ¿Cómo amaneces? Which would translate to, how did you sunrise or how did you dawn? If you stay up super late, there's a word for that as well, and it's called trasnochar, which is also a verb. Trasnochar is easy to remember because it has the same word that you have in for nighttime, nochar, la noche. La noche brings us to the next period of time. La noche starts at 7 p.m. and it ends technically at midnight. But let's give an example. Let's say you're out at a club to 2 a.m. and people are talking about the previous night, last night, which is anoche. They'll still use the time period between midnight and 2 a.m. to talk about last night, even though it's technically the morning time. Similar to English, there are different verbs that they use for laying down, when you go to sleep, when you wake up, and when you actually get out of bed. Those are like 4 different terms. And they're also reflexive verbs. Now, we don't go over reflexive verbs in this course. We just want to give you a little bit of context of how those words work. So when you wake up, despertarse, me despierto, that's to wake up. But then when you get up, levantarse, me levanto. And I use that one to think of levitate, right? Me levanto, when you levitate, when you actually get out of bed, which is very common. We have some people that are addicted to the snooze button, right? You wake up at 1 hour, but you get out of bed at a different hour. The same is true for when you lay down and then when you actually fall asleep. So when you say that you lay down, that's going to be acostarse. That means to lay down. Me acuesto. But then when you actually fall asleep after using social media for half an hour, it could be a different time. Me duermo. So these are the different concepts that you need to learn in the conversation you're about to hear, the different forms of those reflexive verbs: to lay down, to get up, to fall asleep, and so forth.
Cheat code, Spanish.